Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Speak the Word. This is Royalty here with you today. And as usual, I am reminding you we are chosen, we are anointed, and we must do the will of the Father. For those of you who have been tuning in from time to time, I know that it has been a while, and I took some time off after my mom passed away last September, and I do appreciate those of you who have been praying for me and encouraging me along the way. Yes, and it was the month of March when I last saw her alive. So we did visit her in March and then had to go back and bury her in the month of October. So I give God the praise and the honor because, He is the one that gives strength. He is the one that renews our strength, and He does that daily. So I appreciate all of you, and yes, I'm excited to move forward and to continue to share the word of the Lord. 3 important key points I want to leave with you today. Number 1, you are God with us. Number 2, you are God that is for us. Number 3, you are God that is in us. Number 1, you are God that is with us. We are reminded so many times about Emmanuel, this name that God is with us. We need not to forget it. We need to remember that when God says He is with us, He is with us. When Mary received the news that she was going to have a son, and his name will be called Emmanuel, that was a very powerful thing to know that you're going to have a son, but his name has a specific meaning. He is God with us. And it was not only for her alone, but for the entire nation, for the entire world, that she's going to bear a son, and that the meaning of his name was God with us. This is very powerful. Now Joshua, in Joshua 1 and verse 9, it reads, "Have I commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, or do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." There you have it. God Himself reminding Joshua that, listen, I am with you. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. Don't be dismayed. I am God, and that wherever you go, I will be there. Now, Moses had passed away, and now it was up to Joshua to fill the ranks. He was next in line. He was the assistant, but it was now time for Joshua to step up and lead. I don't know all the emotions that was going on with Joshua being a young man and seeing how stubborn and how disobedient the Israelites were when Moses led them. We don't know exactly everything that he was experiencing at that time, because we know the Israelites, they were not an easy bunch of people. They disobeyed God, they worshiped idols, they did a lot of things, and Moses lost his temper many a times with the Israelites. But Joshua was next in line. He was the one that was going to walk in Moses' shoes. And we do not know all the things that he was feeling inside, because now Moses has passed, and people normally look to see what's going to happen. Let's see, what's he going to do now? What's he going to do that is going to be different? When someone is running for a particular post, or politicians, people are always going to have a word and say, oh, let's see what he's gonna be about now, what's difference he's gonna make. So I believe, there was a lot of pressure on Joshua. There were a lot of eyes on Joshua, but God reminded Joshua, listen, I am with you. Don't be afraid. Don't be dismayed. I am with you. And I'm not only going to be with you here, but I am going to be with you everywhere that you go. And I'm reminding you today that God is with you. God got you. And his name is not just Emmanuel because it's a beautiful name, but it's Emmanuel with a meaning. It has a strong purpose. And we need to know this wherever we are, that God, he is with us. You are God that is for us. Let's look at Romans 8 and verse 31. Paul said, if God is for us, who is against us? He who did not withhold his own son, but gave him up for us all, will he not with him also give us everything else? Who will bring any charge against God's elect? Now, Paul was a very passionate writer, and I love reading Paul writings. They're very powerful. He teaches you how to get yourself in order, in line. I look at Paul writings as, you have to measure up, you have to get it right. I love Paul, but Paul was also seen as a Christian terrorist. We know the damage that Paul did in the Christian community, and people wasn't really sure about Paul when he got saved. There was still some questions, and he did a lot of damage, and on one side the Romans was looking at him with one eye, and at the other side the Christians were a bit afraid of him because they didn't really trust him that much. But God was for Paul, and he experienced the power of God, in his ministry. So he knew what it meant to have God to be for him. And when he said, if God is for you, he knew for a fact that nobody else can be against him once God is for him. So, we need to know for sure that God is for us, because you may have people with you. It's one thing to have people with you, but are they for you? They could be next to you, but they're not really for you. So it is important to have people with you because God is with us, but it's also important to know that God is for us. And it is it's a very powerful thing to have someone for you, by your side, standing with you and being for you, and we know that God is for us. We know this. We cannot stray away from knowing that our God, he's always for us. Another individual that knew for sure that God was for them was David. Now, everyone knows the story of David and Goliath. But to me, it's not just a story about David and Goliath. There's a lot of powerful things in that story. And, David listened to Goliath as he gloathed, he was like a bully, Goliath was big. He was 6 cubits tall. And, I guess he felt confident in himself, but overly confident because, he defied the name of God, and that is where he crossed the line. And David did not like how he defied God's name, the children of Israel, and he did not like it. And David said, who's this uncircumcised Philistine, that is doing all of this stuff? And Saul told David, you're just a boy, you're just a boy, this man, he had experience and he was fighting from a child, David was not afraid because David knew God intimately. David knew God privately. David, he was able to testify to Saul and say to him, listen, God helped me to destroy a lion. He helped me to destroy a bear and protected my flock. So, I am basically the man for this job. And Saul perceived that he was not afraid, because we know that you cannot really do anything in fear. And David was very, very confident in his God. And one of the things that stood out to me about this particular passage is that when Saul said to him, David, you are just a boy, he was telling him, you don't have much experience, you're just a boy. This lad, Goliath, he was fighting from the time he was a child. He's quite experienced. But David reminded Saul about what God did for him privately. And sometimes people just see, the surface glance. They just see, well, I know him. I went to school with him. I went to school with her. I know that family, I know them. I know they, I know them, I've been there with them when they were like growing up. So they just like say, you're just this, you're just that. But when you come in contact with knowing God, you're not just a boy, you're not just a girl. You are someone that God, is counting on. You are a powerful being, and I think we need to not take people for granted, because that man, David, he was a masterpiece. God had his eye on David. He was a masterpiece. And, God had a powerful man of God in the making. And David changed history. He took down this Goliath, took down this giant, he slayed the giant slayer, David. But God was for him, because Goliath, he was coming against this boy. He said, who's this? Am I a dog that you bring this little boy before me? And people may see that you're not that much of, you're just a person, talking, but it is, once God is for you, you are not to be taken lightly. You are not to be just taken as at surface glance. There's deeper things beneath the surface, God got something deeper for you to experience if you let him, and he did that for David. He was for David. He was for Saul, and he stood on his word, and David came out a conqueror. And we are more than conquerors. We are overcomers. As Paul says, we are more than surface people. Once God is for you, don't just see yourself as just a boy or just a girl. Once God is for you, he will deliver you. He will help you. God is able to do anything through you. You are God that is in us. And there's a scripture that says, greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. 1 John 4 and verse 4 says, you, dear children, you are from God and have overcome them. For he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. So we need to understand that once we have God in us, we can do mighty things. We can do great things. He's in us. Don't doubt yourself. He's in you, and he will work through you. John 15 and verse 5. I love this chapter because it talks about, in the beginning, it talks about how Jesus said, I am the true vine. He talks about abiding in me and I being in you. What a connection, to keep that relationship going. And knowing that there are many other vines. If Jesus called himself the true vine, you can rest assured that there are vines out there that are connected that is not the true vine. He is the true vine, and that is why he says we need to be connected to him. John 15 and verse 5 says, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you would bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So it is important to have God within you, to have God abiding within you, to know that God is within you. You know, you can read John 15 and you can read about 5, 6, and 7. You know, that will help you to understand when you do not abide in Jesus, when you do not abide in the true vine, what can actually happen to you. But Jesus is saying in his word, once you abide in me, you can do anything. You know, you can do anything. You are great in him. You know, greater is he that is in you. Once he is in you, you can do great things. So this is my short encouragement to you today. You are God with us, reminding you out there today, God is with us, God is for us, and God is in us. So let us take this word today and remind ourselves that, you know, we can do great things for God. God can do great things in us, and he is with us, he loves us, and he cares about us. So I have come to the end of this word, and it was such a pleasure to be here with you today. I am reminding those of you who log on to this channel that upcoming will be 2 powerful prayers of declaration that I want to release. It's been some time now, so there are 2 powerful prayers that I want to release. It's one that is called Deliver Us from Evil, and the other one is called Blessings Upon Blessings. So look forward to receiving them sometime in the month of April, May. I don't know how soon, but I will keep you informed. Yes, and for those of you who are having Easter celebration, I want to wish you a very happy Easter, and remember the reason for the season. Jesus died for you, he loved you, and he cares so much for you. I'm reminding you, I am Royalty signing out. Remember to speak the word, pray the word, believe the word, and most of all, please live the word. Have a great day.